Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let's talk about the DNC trial. This is slightly fascinating to me. And I know I say this a lot, but it is. When you're looking at the world, you're like, that's bizarre. That's interesting. This is fascinating. I watched other people's response on this. And I realized we're living in a particular bubble, if that makes sense. This is a reality for us. All of us are in a particular sandbox because all of us are intertwined with a particular case dealing with the DNC. They defrauded our guy. They cheated our guy. We feel a particular way about the fact that they cheated our guy. Now, the heroes, these guys who's brought this lawsuit against the DNC are exposing this. And they're exposing this in a very particular way. Meaning the very act of them trying to defend themselves, they're forced to confront this idea of, we can do whatever the hell we want. This is our corporation. This is ours. We have control over this. If we want to cheat a candidate, we can cheat a candidate. You have no legal recourse to do anything about us cheating the candidate. Yes, I've said before, that's true. You can do whatever you want in a corporation. But if you're smiling at me, and you're looking at the camera at me, and you're telling me, this process is fair. This process is fair. We're being honest. This process is fair. And we find out that your fingers are crossed behind your back. Well, wait a minute. I sent you money based upon this idea of you grinning at me on camera and telling me the process is fair. That's fraud. You lied to me in order to get my resources. I sent money down. You said this is fair. I understand that as a corporation you can do whatever you want within that particular corporation. Good for you. The moment you get on camera, however, and you look at me and you smile at me and you grin in my face as if we're buddies, and you say, hey, no, this thing is fair. I know it looks like we're cheating you. It looks kind of rigged, but no, it is a fair process. You can continue to send your money to Sanders. It is not a fraud in a sense. We're not defrauding you. Yes, you're defrauding us. You defrauded us. You cheated us. You cheated our candidate. It goes beyond cheating our candidate. It's a fundamental thing of democracy itself. I'm going to read some of this from Counterproba. I just want to make a very particular point. Mainstream media is not really covering this. That's amazing. So this is our world. This is our sandbox. This is our perspective of sorts. We've created this thing of sorts. This is why I say I find it fascinating. Outside of this, that thing doesn't exist. This is a particular reality. Those realities do not know this reality exists. So the mainstream media and all this other stuff around us are unclear that this part is going on, even though what's going on is fundamental to the democracy itself. It's an amazing thing. It's fascinating. It's like if I asked my mom, hey, did you know there's a DNC trial? What do you mean a DNC trial? Exactly. She wouldn't know. The reason I'm saying this is immensely important. We have a fundamental problem with our democracy. We do. There's an apparatus of government, and there are parties who control that particular apparatus. You're going to vote. Well, there's a difference between the apparatus of government and the things that's doing the governing, if that makes sense. So yes, you have a president. The president is at the helm of the government. It's like a driver of a bus driving the bus. The bus itself is the framework, it's the government. Same thing with the political apparatus. Here's the problem. You have parties controlling the political apparatus. That party has an investment in who wins that contest. That's a problem. That's a problem. Meaning, when you're running an election, that election is an apparatus. The party is controlling it. It's the party controlling that particular apparatus for that particular result. So Sanders goes in a contest against Hillary Clinton. You have Democrats who favor Hillary Clinton, and they're contorting the apparatus for their person. They're tilting the results. Now, wait a minute. There's a problem there. The apparatus is the thing that's controlling who's getting put into that government. If you as a party have the ability to control the particular apparatus, and I'm being I'm putting focus on this term apparatus because I want you to think of it in your head as if it's a physical thing, something that you can touch and hold. Because ultimately, those elections are real things. Those elections make decisions on who moves on and who ultimately gets into that office. The fact that Hillary Clinton was allowed to cheat Sanders, and not just Hillary Clinton, I'm talking about all those Democrats who were involved in that process, the fact that they were able to put their hands on the apparatus and tilt it a particular way to their particular person in that office, in that seat, and not even in that seat, to exceed the primary itself, that they were able to do that, means they were able to fundamentally change or contort democracy. Those parties should have no say-so over what goes on in the elections themselves. The party should only have the capacity to run a candidate. The apparatus itself should be separate and distinct from any party influence. Period. This super delegates to vote, this thing about voting for super delegates, that's not enough. It's not enough. That's nice. That's not enough. They should have no control over the apparatus that controls who gets elected. I don't give a shit if it's the primaries. The primaries feeds themselves out into the main election process. The primary should not be controlled by the parties themselves. The election apparatus should have nothing to do with the parties. The parties should have one thing that they can do. They can put a candidate up. That candidate can run. The apparatus should be controlled by some independent body. Whoever wins, wins. But our elections should be honest. And you can't tell me that the ability of a party to literally control the apparatus of government itself, even though they're not a part of the government. None of these parties are part of the government. They are two corporations. There's a lawsuit. Again, it blows me away that people didn't know that those parties were corporations. Those parties are corporations. You're being upset and you're being put off. You're angry at them. But those parties are corporations. They always function as corporations. They can do whatever they want. You're mistaking the corporation. You're mistaking the bus driver for the bus. The beauty of this lawsuit is it's making clear that, hey, these guys are just drivers of a particular bus. In that bus, they had a decision on who they wanted to run that particular bus. And because they were able to control the apparatus, the governing apparatus, meaning the apparatus that controls who gets put into government, because they had control of that, they were able to contort the results. This primary about Sanders, it's cathartic. It should be cathartic. You were cheated. And because you were cheated, Donald Trump is in that goddamn office. So understand what we're talking about. Understand the severity of this. And it's a damn shame that the other realities that are out there aren't paying attention to this as closely as we are. I mean, understand what takes place here. This goes beyond them cheating Sanders. The fact that Sanders was cheated, the fact they threw 10,000 people off the rolls in New York, the fact that they stole Nevada, literally stole Nevada, and the entire time they're doing this, they're saying, you guys are being spoiled losers. You guys are being spoiled losers, so you need to fall in line, because Donald Trump is going to eat your goddamn babies if you do not fall in line and be with her. That was their case. And what made it so bad when he came out showing, yes, you people weren't crazy. They were cheating you every bit along the way. They were cheating you along the way. When they threw those 10,000 people off the rolls in Brooklyn, you go for voting thing, and they say, we don't know who you are. You're not on the rolls. I wanted to vote for Sanders. I'm sorry, yeah, I know, but you're not on the rolls. 10,000, I think it was 100,000 of them, gone. Completely gone. Registration for the Democratic primary was like 6 to 8 months before anybody even knew who was going to be on the goddamn primary itself. This shit is rigged. They were closing down polling locations when it came to the election. So somebody who wanted to go for Sanders had to find a different location because they shut down multiple locations. Democrats howled and complained that Republicans were engaging in voter suppression. And did the exact same thing during the primaries when it was their candidate who they wanted to exceed those primaries. They did all of that just for her to lose to goddamn reality shows. Anything that takes place, anything that takes place, any failing of Donald Trump, anything that Trump does that injures, hurts, mauls, destroys. Whatever he does in that particular office that hurts somebody, whether it be American or whether it be somebody abroad, is directly related to the events that took place in that primary. This lawsuit is cathartic. This lawsuit is cathartic. And this lawsuit is being ignored. I want to review this. So this is counterpropa. So Zach Howler. Zach Howler. He's going through multiple parts of the lawsuit. Now, again, I make this point that the DNC is a corporation. It can do whatever it wants. So some of this is not really all that mind-blowing to me, but it should be mind-blowing. Understand, it's because they have control of the political apparatus when they're doing something. It makes it look as if they're part of the political process. They're not part of the process. They're part of the process only in the sense that they're putting a candidate up. I'm saying that the rungs of government, the things that control those things, the party should have no influence beyond putting a candidate up. That's the point that I'm making. It's not enough to just get rid of superdelegates. That's not enough. That's not enough. There needs to be changes in the government itself, in the way government is constructed. That's a problem that needs to be fixed. That's a problem they're going to fight tooth and nail to not change because they want control of the political apparatus. They should have no parts of that control. If nothing else, this has shown us they should have no parts of that particular control. You can't be trusted. If you're going to get in a lawsuit and the only defense you can muster is, well, look, it's a corporation. We can lie when we want to lie. There's nothing that says we need to be honest when we're doing what we're doing. We can put whoever we want. We can choose whoever we want it in a smoke for a room if that's the way we wanted to run that process. Problem with that is, you are confronted with an audience, and you are telling an audience something. So regardless of whatever you do in that organization, you still are communicating something to people that is false. And in the process of communicating something to people that's false, those people donate their money based on that communication. It's not enough to say that you can do whatever you want in your organization. You went beyond that of doing something in your organization to influencing public. That's a lie. That's a goddamn lie. And you should lose this case for that lie. But in the very act of this case being made, you had to make the argument, meaning all of these people are on record saying the Democratic Party cannot be trusted. Can't be trusted. We're confronted with the ridiculousness of the person who this lawsuit is about, Bernie Sanders. And instead of being a champion for this lawsuit, it's working with the machine that cheated him in the first place, and working with the machine that put Donald Trump in that office. That is the ridiculousness that we are working with. That is literally the ridiculousness that we're working with. We have people pining over Sanders. Sanders should be out here helping these guys with this case. He's not helping these guys with this case. You know what he's doing? Company man. Democrat. Company man. I'm not calling him a socialist. Democrat. Is out here trying to sheep herd people back into the Democratic Party. The party who this lawsuit is against. And who just came out saying, we cannot be trusted. We can do whatever the hell we want in this particular party, even if it means cheating the people who are going out to make those votes. That is an amazing thing. That is an amazing thing. You could not even write that in fiction. That is truth. That is more bizarre than fiction. I'm going to cheat you. I'm going to defraud you. I'm going to do something to put a madman in that office. And then I'm going to cover the fact that the madman is in that office by saying, completely saying, Russia hacked us. The heroes that are taking these people to court, the heroes, the Sanders, is skewed. It's not supported. Even though these people are trying to support him, the people who are doing this to some degree to save democracy. And I know that sounds epic. I know that sounds grandiose. But it's putting a spotlight on the things that these parties do. That is immensely important. Yeah, so I want to go through some of Zach Howler's work because I think it's fascinating. It's good to know in the sense of, I don't think most people know this. So I don't think most people know the depths of these parties. In the sense of how these parties function. They think these things are part of the government, and I kind of keep making this point of, they're not. They're entities. They're single entities. Anybody can control that particular apparatus. My argument is, they shouldn't have any control of the apparatus. The party should only be able to put people up for the political process. Otherwise, you're going to always get the situation where they tilt for their person. The apparatus itself is problematic because parties are controlling it. Each party has a vested interest in their particular person. Does that mean that that particular person has a vested interest in stuffing votes? Maybe. Does that mean that the person may do something to the machine? Maybe. Does it mean they would miscount if they need to miscount? Maybe. The fact is, how do you know they won't? And if there is an incentive for them to do so, why do you want that incentive to be part of the political process? When you want to know who wins those elections? Honestly. Objectively. Without having all this other incentive shit built into the process. The fact that Sanders lost should make that absolutely clear. This lawsuit should scare the shit out of people when they're looking at who they're going to vote for in a party. Because ultimately that party is a corporation. It does not have your interests in heart. It has its own interests at heart. Alright, so Zach Outlet. The crux of the motion to dismiss asserts the judge is not in a position to determine how the Democratic Party conducts its nominating process. Meaning, we can conduct our nominating process any way we want. It's not for you to judge, or it's not for you to decide. You have no authority to make the decision on how we conduct our nominating process. The second one, the Democratic Party views itself as having the authority to favor a candidate without any legal repercussions. And again, it's a corporation. It can do whatever it wants. The problem with that is, you're putting this up for a political process. And you're saying you're controlling a particular apparatus that will make a decision on who goes to fight in politics, who's going to go into the main election. You're holding that up as a political process. And you're tilting it, while at the same time saying you're not tilting it. If this was purely internal, meaning the public had no insight, you're just running a contest internally, then you're right. Then you're perfectly right. If I am doing something and I have absolute control over the thing that I'm doing and nobody else is out there, I am not communicating to anybody else about this process, it's just the individuals involved in the process, then yes, you're right. Nobody can point a finger at you and say, hey, you're cheating that guy, because that's purely internal to your own process. If someone wants to complain internally, then they complain internally. But that is not the situation to which we're presented. We're talking about a political process in which millions of people are involved and millions of people are donating money to that process. That's a bullshit argument. That is a complete bullshit argument. Judge Zilak appealed skeptical, noting the Democrats' interest to obscure the guarantee of the party's impartiality clause. So the judge is saying, well, wait a minute, you have a clause in your bylaw saying you're going to be impartial. How are you throwing that away? Now the party itself is asserting, well, we can throw that away anytime we want because purely that's just our bylaws. Those are just the laws we say we go by. But we're not bound by that, particularly not legally bound by that. We can do whatever we want with the Democratic Party. The Democrats insist that impartial cannot be defined, so the DNC's impartiality clause is akin to a political promise that cannot be guaranteed. What does it mean to be impartial? What does that mean? Who knows what that means? That word is so undefined. We don't know how to define that, so you can't legally hold us accountable for something that can't be defined. It's a political promise that nobody can actually guarantee. I mean, this is the arguments that they're making. Imagine, that's amazing. Imagine you're in an argument with somebody and the only position that you can take is, look, we never said that we can be honest. We never said we had to be honest. We can lie whenever we want. We can make shit up whenever we want. We can make a choice for our own person whenever we want. We're the DNC. We're the Democratic National Convention. We don't care about what other people want. Ultimately, we can make a choice on who we want to run. That is an amazing place to have to go to defend yourself. That's an amazingly embarrassing place to have to resolve. They should lose this case. They should lose this case. This is not a purely internal process. That's what I'm trying to get at. If Deborah Wasserman Schultz Clinton, Sanders, if nobody knew that they were having a thing, they were making a choice in a smoke-filled room, nobody could say anything about it. It's their choice. You can dislike that choice, but it would be their choice. Nobody's defrauded, ultimately. It's a purely internal thing. They're a corporation. They can make whatever the choice they want within their corporation. It's like, think of it as, think of it as Apple. Apple has an election. They want to find somebody who's going to be CEO or president of the company. That's an internal process to Apple. Now, if Apple comes out and says, hey, we want you to make a vote on who's going to do this. And you can send money and support to whoever you want in this particular process. Well, now you've involved me. And not just involved me, you've involved me in a way that I can send money to the process to help get whoever I want to take a particular position. Now, if you turn around and lie to me and say that, yes, we're being impartial, and you know you're not being impartial, well, you've just lied to me. If you're being honest with me and you say, yeah, we're slanting this, then yeah, I wouldn't have sent money to that process. What you told me is directly affecting whether or not I am going to send money to this process, meaning the lie is a fraud. Understand what I'm saying? Their argument is bullshit because their argument is almost based on this idea that they're doing this as purely an internal process. This is not an internal process. You've included the audience. You included the audience. And this audience is a very particular audience. They want someone in that office who's going to actually do something. You wanted someone in that office who's going to be status quo. And you made decisions, one after the other. You lied. You cheated. You can make the argument that you even stole with some of these machines, the way these machines were racking up. Either way you want to cut it, you cheated. Miserably cheated millions of people. And put Donald Trump in that office. So that's the argument that we're talking about. And to resort to this idea of, well, it's our party, we can do whatever we want, and this idea of impartial, we don't even know what that means. We don't even know what that means. We don't have a conception. The Democratic Party doesn't have a conception of what the term impartial means. That's an amazing thing. What needs to be true for an individual to not know what that word means? What needs to be true? And the fact that this is their defense. What does it mean? That's an amazing thing. That's the argument that they're going to make. And they're making this argument live. They're saying, this argument is written down. The Democratic Party doesn't have to be impartial. We have no idea what that word means. DNC's legal counsel appears to be unaware of procedures in place to determine how the DNC supports state parties as they conduct individual primary nominating contests. This is kind of my point that I got at before. The political apparatus should not be controlled by the parties. And this idea that the DNC doesn't know how these states are doing it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like saying each state party is its own entity, and those entities are completely untethered to how the DNC runs their system. Now, that may or may not be true. I'm saying it's a ridiculous thing if it is true. It's kind of ridiculous if it's true. My feeling is, no, that's probably a lie. Only because you had many of these states making decisions to curb voting. To curb voting booths. To curb the number of places or polling locations. They weren't doing that willy-nilly, and they weren't doing it for the behest of Sanders or anybody else. They were doing it for Clinton. They were trying to get their person in office. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. But whether I believe it or not, whether it's true or not, is irrelevant to the process. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. The Democratic lawyers take the position that while the Democrats are not legally obligated to conduct the primary fairly, they did in fact conduct the 2016 primary fairly. Wait a minute. You don't know what the definition of impartial is, but you're going to make an argument that you were being fair. Alright, let's talk about this term fair. What do you mean by fair? What has to be true for the Democratic Party to believe that cheating somebody in any capacity results in fairness? That's an amazing thing. That's an amazing thing. Over several hours of oral arguments, counsel for the DNC gave somewhat contradictory statements that makes it difficult to determine the exact argument the party has taken in response to the lawsuit, while admitting repeatedly and in great detail that the party has no legal obligation to conduct the primary impartiality. Spiva later insists that the 2016 primary was conducted impartially. I don't know what this word means, impartial, but I know we conducted impartially. Lawyers are fucking ridiculous. They're ridiculous. You pay the money and they just argue a particular point. It's sleazy. I get it. It's part of the process. But man, it's a sleazy part. Hey, here's $20. I need you to go out there and argue that cheating is not in fact cheating. And that we have no idea what the word impartial means. But goddamn it, we know we were impartial. The closing remarks of U.S. Federal Court District Judge emphasizes democracy demands the truth. It does. And that's not, and understand that that is what we're talking about. I know this, look, this is lawsuit is somewhat of a cathartic experience for people, only because they cheated us. And in some degree, we're striking back at the fact that we're cheated. And we're holding our finger at the institution saying, wait a minute, you guys cheated. You're not getting off the hook. Like that, just like that. I don't give a shit if Sanders is working with you. You did cheat. That's not fair. And beyond that being fair, you subverted the will of the people in this particular democracy. That's what people are, that's what they're fundamentally missing. When people are saying Sanders people need to just get over it, you're not getting over it. You're not getting over it. Donald Trump is in that office. Donald Trump is going to hurt a lot of people in that office. Donald Trump may start wars in that office. All those things are directly related to what took place in the primary. The fact that she cheated him in the primary, in many respects, is responsible for Trump being in that office. On two ways. In one sense, if she would have lost, Trump would have lost to Sanders. The fact that she didn't lose, or the fact that Sanders did lose and lost in that particular way, gutted support for Clinton in the main election. Both of these things are related to the DNC. Donald Trump did not have a huge number of people who put him in that office. In fact, he had miserable turnout to voting for him. Hillary Clinton was just driving people away. The number of people Sanders was bringing would have been a landslide. It would have been an absolute landslide. But that's not what happened. This country had an opportunity for something big. It had an opportunity for something big. But instead of having that opportunity, we had, I'm with her. I have a vagina. You should vote for me because I have a vagina. And Donald Trump alpha mailed her and took that office. He didn't have a groundswell of support. He didn't have this huge number of races going to put him into the polls. Many of the people who voted for Obama ended up voting for Trump. If you notice, African Americans, we have one people to vote for, one party, for the most part, that we vote for. But that's not true of other people. Other demographics have two parties to vote for. Democrats sometimes forget that. There's a headwind for African Americans voting for the Republican Party. That headwind is cultural. That headwind is real. That headwind should be there. But the same headwind is not there for other demographics, particularly whites. There is no situation where that white person is going to feel his life is in jeopardy or being oppressed by the Republican Party. The Republican Party is a viable party for him to vote for. If you may think he's mental for doing it, but he is a viable party. If Trump is giving an economic message, the racist shit doesn't matter because it doesn't apply to him. So yes, he's going to vote for that guy if that guy is saying something about economics, not necessarily using her vagina as a reason to get elected. There's a difference in those things. When they tallied up how he was attacked, Hillary Clinton spent the overwhelming majority of her time just attacking Trump. Trump did spend time talking about the economy. Guess what won? The economy. The economy won. Now, yes, Trump is going to be in that office. Yes, he's going to start cutting things. Yes, he's going to have a bare bones budget. Yes, they're going to attack and get rid of Obamacare. Yes, he may start a war with Iran. Yes, he may start a war with North Korea. Yes, Meals on Wheels is going to be attacked. Services are going to be attacked. They may take Social Security. They may gut Medicare. All of those things on the chopping block. Don't blame them. Republicans told you what they were going to do. They didn't lie to you. They were straight up. we're going to take those services, we're going to take those things that you like, and yes, we're probably going to attack those unions, and yes, we're probably going to get rid of abortions. We're the Republican Party. This is what we believe in, and this is what we're going to do. What did you think they were going to do? What did you think they were going to do? So don't be shocked with the fact that they're doing it. Your job was to keep them out that office. That was your job. That was your task. That task was failed in the primaries. So if people are pointing to the primaries saying, wait a minute, they cheated us. This is a big fucking deal. Yes, the lawsuit is a big fucking deal. Particularly when it reveals that somebody lied and cheated in this particular thing and contorted the political apparatus to get their person in office against the will of the American people. This lawsuit is a big deal. This lawsuit is a big deal. It should be covered more in mainstream media, and it's not. And that's a tragedy. That's totally a tragedy. Heads up to Zach Howler. Good fucking job. I'm going to put this article at the bottom of the thing. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the work through Patreon or Patreon.